Season 6, Episode 12, A Girl Named Sue, where we meet Sue Dearborn, which, if you don't know, well, I mean, that's the first question. Well, the first question is about Mirror Master, but anyway, Ralph and Sue are one of the premier couples of DC Comics. And so the woman that he meets tonight in the comics, they end up getting married and becoming one of the strongest couples in DC Comics until Identity Crisis. And Identity Crisis is a storyline that happened that, I don't want to spoil it if you haven't read it, but it's brutal. Identity Crisis is completely brutal. So just fair warning if you watch it. Fair warning that that's what you're in for. Okay? All right, so now let me go to your questions. Not your questions. My questions, your answers. All right. So let me pull up question number 1. And question number 1 on FlashChat today says, are you familiar with a Mirror Master from the comics at all? Mirror Master, actually, this has been played. There's several different people that have been Mirror Master in the comics. There's not just like one Mirror Master, but there are some people that have been Mirror Master. And so, are you familiar with Mirror Master from the comics at all? If you are, let me know. Okay, he's one of my favorite Flash villains. He's one of my favorite Flash rogues, but we've only really seen him one time on the show, and on the show that wasn't really the best representation of him. Okay, so I highly recommend that you check out the comics and you check out who Mirror Master really is, because you really get a kick out of him. He's got a very goofy orange and green costume, because, you know, except for Aquaman, green and purple and orange tend to be villain colors. Not all the time, but often. But, so let me see what you said to that question. Polly, P_Maker, says a little bit. Enough to know that they gender bent this, true, and it made me mad. I liked what I read of it, just didn't have money or time to keep up with it all. Well, Mirror Master is all over Flash's history, you know. One of Flash's longest running and most famous rogues. Different men have been Mirror Master, but Polly is right. On the TV show, they gender bent it. And so they're going to make Mirror Master now a woman. She's now the wife of the guy that would have been Mirror Master before. And once again, you've heard me talk about it a million times, that seems to be the thing today, that they want to gender bend, they want to race bend, they want to do all those things. Let me read you a little bit about Mirror Master from Wiki, just to give you a little background. Mirror Master is the name of several fictional supervillains appearing in comic books published by DC Comics. He is a recurring foe of the Flash with considerable technical expertise and skills involving the use of mirrors. 3 individuals have donned the guise of Mirror Master. So let's, Sam Scudder was the first Mirror Master. Evan McCulloch was the second Mirror Master. So when you see the McCulloch or McCullough name that they're using, they're keying in off the second Mirror Master, which was Evan McCulloch. Okay? But they were guys every time. They weren't women, but this time it's going to be a woman. Okay? Let's move on to question number 2. Question number 2, I say, is, what did you think of Iris's new friend in the mirror dimension? Now, again, the new friend in the mirror dimension is Eva McCulloch. And as the show told you, she understands quantum dimensional reality. She understands the mirror stuff. And she got sucked into the mirror dimension. But when we meet her in the episode, she's crazed, okay, as well she should be, because she's been in there 6 years by herself, and a lot would happen to the psyche if you're stuck in that mirror dimension and you have a portal, you have a way to actually look out, but you can't get out, okay? That's been their dilemma. So what did you think of Eva when you meet her? Because I think it's funny that, she gets pulled in, Iris gets pulled in at the exact same spot that Eva was. In 6 years, would you have moved? Or were they trying to say that Eva was actually stuck in that room for 6 years? If she was stuck in the mirror dimension, that's one thing. Maybe she could have explored it, because she said that the mirror dimension is kind of a backwards offshoot of the main dimension. But if she was stuck in that room for 6 years, then yeah, I can see why she'd be a little batty. Okay? So let me read your answers. And you say, Polly says she's going to need some serious therapy when she comes back. True. If she does, her attitude about being trapped, it makes sense to me. Her paranoia, etc., right? But I don't trust her, if that makes sense. I think she's in there for a reason, not an accident. And I'm going to respond to her by saying, I said all of that on the live stream, almost verbatim. So once again, we are brain twins. I didn't include the part, however, about her being there on purpose. Elaborate a little bit more on that. Because I think it's a very interesting idea. I think that's a very interesting premise, that Eva McCulloch is there. Maybe she got trapped there. Maybe her husband put her in there. Maybe she got exiled there. Maybe her evil mirror self, maybe that's not the real Eva. I'm actually going to say that on the Twitter stream as well. I'm going to say also, maybe this isn't the real Eva. Maybe this is the mirror Eva trying to use Iris to get out of the dimension, which is entirely possibly true. It's entirely possibly true that the woman we're looking at and listening to is not actually Eva McCulloch. She just says that she is. Okay? So let me see if Pauline did some follow-up. Yeah, so I wanted to elaborate a little bit more. I don't trust her either. I wouldn't trust her. If I came in, she grabbed Iris and hugged her, and I'm so glad. And I understand that. I understand those are all very normal human reactions, but I certainly wouldn't trust her. I think that Iris's reporter sense, her spidey sense, is kicking in. So she's doing what she should do, which is get as much information as she can. But I don't think Iris trusts her either, nor should she, and I think she's picking up on that. Because you don't know anything about her, you don't know what she's doing, all you know is what she's saying. And just because she's saying all that doesn't mean that any of it is true. Okay? So let me see if Polly answered that question. But yeah, wouldn't trust her. Just wouldn't trust her at all. Okay, let's move on to question number 3. Question number 3 is, it's a given that they're going to get out. Did you buy the way Iris helped Eva activate her powers? And I'm going to answer that as well. See here again, my answer is that wasn't an accident, because I don't think it was. I think that Eva was waiting to manifest those powers on someone to trick them into working with her for her to get out. Because it's just too convenient. And, it's really funny because in comics, when somebody activates their powers, it's normally through some type of stress It's normally through some type of accident. It's normally through some type of circumstances and fight or flight kicks in. And I know that's how the X-Men powers activate. The mutant powers on the Marvel side always activate under stress, and normally puberty. So normally you go through puberty, and somehow that wakes your X gene up, along with your body waking up. And then you get under that stress and your powers manifest. So that's a very common comic booky trope. I guess the thing that stood out to me is that Iris kind of walked her through it, and, you know, I don't know, Iris seemed to kind of lead her into power activation. So is Iris like a meta expert because her husband's a meta? Is she like Cisco or Caitlyn? I don't know. I don't know. I could be stretching that. I could be pushing it, but it just seems like, I don't know. How would she know how to tell her how to do all that or whatever? So. Polly says, almost like she went banished there because of things she was doing. I read a comic somewhere that someone was banished for trying to do things to the city to live out their days alone in their own empty hole, like a serious case of solitary confinement. And to that I'm going to say, gotcha. That's entirely feasible given the circumstances. Entirely feasible. Okay. So question 3 is, again, it's a given that they're going to get out. Did you buy the way Iris helped Eva activate those powers? So let me read you guys' answers. I didn't buy them per se because they just seemed too convenient. And Polly says just what I tried to re-explain in the last question. Either she's in there for wrongdoing or she's not innocent and wants out but needs someone to do so. And I'm going to say that's it, exactly. Kind of a play. Kind of a play on Eobard's dilemma. He needed Barry to become the Flash to create the Speed Force so he could get back home. Maybe Eva is doing something very similar. Because remember, Iris was pulled in. Remember that? Remember that when Iris got in the mirror dimension, it's because those two mirror arms reached out and grabbed her and pulled her in. Remember that? So it's starting to look, as we examine, it's starting to look more and more like what actually happened was that Eva, or whoever that is, was just biding her time for someone to come fooling around and get close enough to that mirror to activate so she could pull him in and use whatever Iris is going to supply to get her out. That's what it's looking like is actually happening. So I think that Eva's playing the whole victim card to maybe seem sympathetic and maybe get Iris on her side, but that's not what's happening in the slightest. Okay, on to the next question. Make sure I've read everybody's answers. Ms. Carrie Diva says, on question 3, my thoughts exactly. You really think 6 years in her powers wouldn't have manifested in that fake, shocked reaction? So yeah, I'm going to say, yeah, she's setting Iris up to help her get out. Maybe the mirror dimension won't release everybody all at once, something like that. But Eva is definitely going to do a bait and switch on Iris before this is over. She is definitely going to do that. Okay? All right, let's move on to question number 4. after Eva explained how the mirror dimension worked, I kind of wanted to spend some more time there to see exactly what was backwards, agree or disagree. What I mean by that is, once Eva said that the mirror dimension is the backwards reflection of everything in the main world, I'm like, really? Because that would certainly be a perfect place for a reverse flash, let's say, to hide. I think I'll write that down. Because upon further reflection, do you see what I did there? A mirror opposite dimension would be a perfect place for, say, a reverse flash to hide. Imagine that. So maybe Eobard actually is a part of this. Maybe he's somewhere in that dimension. That's what I'm saying. I would have liked to have explored it some more to see what's going on in that dimension. Okay. Batman McGrath, Mr. Bubbles 4200 says, is the Flash still on? Thought all the CWDC shows were done after Crisis. But then again, I think it's more I just stopped caring about them. Well, there you have it. Man, I've been so thirsty lately. I've been having to guzzle lots of water. So yeah, I think we should explore. That's what I'm wondering. That's what I'm saying. Is Eva just stuck in that room? Is she just stuck in that room, or there's some shenanigans and some fishy stuff going on in that mirror dimension? It can't just be, if it's the opposite of our world, it can't just be that one room, and it can't just be even. It can't just be anything. It's got to be a whole vast earth where stuff is going on, and I would like to see it. Okay, let me see if you guys had anything else to say on that. No, I don't think so. So yeah, very, very important. Very, very important that we understand a little bit more about the mirror dimension. Very, very important. Okay, I'm just looking at my timeline for some more questions. Not more questions, more answers to the questions. Because I write the questions, I keep forgetting that. Okay. So, yeah, I'm also kind of surprised, but then again, Iris probably can't get away. Because I'm sure that Iris would think of the same thing that I'm thinking of. I'm sure Iris would say, if it's what you say it is, even if it's a whole world out there, that means there are other mirror versions out there. Why wouldn't Iris try to contact one of them? Like Mirror Cisco, or Mirror Caitlin, or Mirror Joe West. Why wouldn't Iris be trying to contact them? That's something to think about. And I'm sure Iris would be thinking about that in that dimension because, her journalistic and a reporter, her inquisitive nature, her tendency to ask questions and seek answers and information would kick in because that's what it means to be a reporter and a journalist. Okay. Question 5. Do you like the combination of Ralph and Cecile as detectives and crime busters? I'm going to also answer that question myself. I'm going to say my answer here is that the show is too crowded as is. So maybe it's time for a Ralph and Sue spinoff, and Cecile and maybe even Joe can occasionally guest star. Okay. Okay, Flash chat is kind of quiet today, but I understand because this was, quite frankly, a pretty boring episode. I wish I could say different, but it's really pretty boring, and it's really stuff that if we would have skipped it, maybe you like to Sue stuff. Later on, I'm asking more questions about Sue, but this Iris in the mirror stuff and this lack of Barry is just boring the fans. And then the side trip with Cecile and Ralph or whatever, it is boring the fans. So. Hey there everyone, David Taylor 2 here. I am so excited about the launch of the Nephilim Wars. This comic is a part of my War in Heaven series, which includes novels, coloring books, and an RPG. Nephilim are half-human, half-angel hybrids, where their dads are from heaven, but their moms are from Earth. My comic, The Nephilim Wars, is set at the end of the 30th century, and the Nephilim are breeding again, and not just humans. Yikes! All right. Dark Grayson 3 says, well, Ralph is supposed to be the greatest detective of DC verse, so it should be a natural element for him. But this version of Ralph is still just another flavor of Plastic Man, sadly. I'm going to say that's really rather true, isn't it? I mean, he keeps saying that he's this hotshot detective, but he normally needs Barry to bail him out 95% of the time because he failed to detect something. So true. Okay. So I still think that if we're going to do Ralph and Cecile, it should actually be a Ralph and Sue spinoff. And Cecile should be a regular guest star. Maybe she could go on that show with them, and Joe could be a guest star. Polly says it's a bit crowded around here. Awesome to see them together, maybe in their own show. But we have more plots than Barry and May timelines going on, and I'm going to say, once again, you have read my mind. 100% agreement. Okay, let's move on to the next question. And the next question is, question 6, grown. I am not looking forward to whatever's going on with Barry's powers. I'm sure it will be a downgrade. Are you curious about what's happening with him? Okay, so if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, what's been clear since they've gotten back from Crisis is that Barry has been having problems with his powers. And problems with his powers is he's been winded, but the main thing they allude to, because the Flash is not supposed to get winded because he can breathe and his blood and his metabolism and everything is designed to help him not get winded with all that super speed running and moving that he does. But he's been winded, but also the Flash has an accelerated healing factor. Again, his metabolism is much faster than a normal person, so it's not that he can't get wounded, it's just that his wounds heal faster than most people's. So what's happened is that Barry hurt his shoulder, and his shoulder's still hurting, okay, all these days later, and that's unusual for him, and he's feeling it. Now, we already know, if you know anything about the spoilers for this season, we already know something major is going to happen with Barry and the Speed Force. What I think is going to happen is, I don't know, I don't think they're going to replace him outright, even though they probably should, because Grant comes across like he's a little tired of being Barry. They might just replace him with Wally. I know that Wally's coming back. I think they're going to do a storyline where they make Wally the fastest, speedster alive, like in the comics. I think that's what's coming. But they also might make Wally what they made Wally in the comics, like deranged and psycho and a murderer and a whole bunch of stuff they did with Wally West. That was awful. They might be doing that storyline too. But something's happening with the Speed Force, and I'm not quite sure yet what it is. They might be doing something like Eobard's messing with it, Or maybe, Nora changed something when she died because she went back in time 52 times. Maybe she did something to it. Who knows? But something's going on with the Speed Force and Barry's ability to tap into it. That's why he's healing more slowly. And I do know there's going to be a Speed Force storyline somewhere later on in the episodes. And we know that Wally's coming back too. So that's my answer. So let me read your answers to that question. Question 6, and you guys say, Thomas Mallory says, yep. Ms. Carrie Dita says, sometimes I forget it's the Flash. But yes, I want to see, and I was hoping for the return of the fastest man alive. And I'm going to say, me too, but that, unfortunately, has never been Barry. He has never been the fastest on his own show. Because he just hasn't been. Polly says, I have no idea, but my eyes were rolling so hard at this. Unless evil Mirror Iris is slowly zapping his strength somehow with her perfect pancakes. Somehow with her perfect pancakes and very overly aggressive journalism. Maybe opposite something is making him slower and it's Mirror Iris's fault. Mirror Iris might be connected to Reverse Flash, who's hiding in the mirror dimension. And yeah, maybe proximity to her is draining Barry's speed. Again, maybe that's the truth. I mean, it sounds right. It sounds like it's going to be something like that. I like what Polly's saying, though, about her super pancakes. Okay, but, yeah. So maybe it's some type of connection. They might say something like, the vibrational frequencies between the regular verse where we live and Barry and them live, and the mirror dimension is the opposite, and anybody getting close to someone from that dimension, maybe it messes with your DNA or something. I don't know. Who knows? But maybe that is what's going on. Because Mirror Iris always has that look on her face like she knows exactly what's happening. I'm going to say that. Mirror Iris always has that look on her face like she knows exactly what's happening. Okay? All right, let's move on to question 7. Question 7 says, all of a sudden, Iris's doppel reveals her plan. I believe her goal is to use that mirror gun to make herself real, permanent in this world, maybe bring other mirror world people with her. Agree or disagree? Now, all of a sudden, that plan also makes a lot of sense if Eobard is hiding in there. Remember, the last time we saw Thawne was when Nora derezzed and disappeared and basically blinked out of existence. And Barry was livid. He was outraged, and understandably so, because he lost his daughter right before his very eyes. She literally disintegrated in his hands. What a way for your kid to go. And what Eobard said to Barry was, I'll see you in the next crisis. Now, he wasn't actually in the crisis episodes, but maybe he's stuck in the mirror dimension. And so maybe this is his next elaborate plan to hide from Barry and gather strength and come back out here in the real world. Who knows? But since Iris was obsessed with that mirror gun, once Barry gave it to her, and then I saw that, I'm like, oh, okay. That mirror gun is somehow going to make the play switching between Mirror Iris and Real Iris permanent, and also maybe it can open up the mirror for other people to come out. That's what I think the gun is going to do. Okay, so let me see what you guys have to say. Polly says, do you think it will be like Warehouse 13, as my daughter says Warehouse 51, where Alice was tired of being a reflection of everyone else, wanted to be the real thing and left everyone else watch from the mirror like she had to do forever? I'm going to say that's entirely possible, except it's not just the iris involved. If it was just her, then a definite yes, but it's Eva as well. And Lord knows whoever else is in that mirror dimension, I think they all want out. And I do think they all want out. I mean, if it's a question of mirror dimension people having to watch quote unquote real dimension people live their life, and they want to live their life too, and they never get a chance to get out, I can see how that would lead to some type of revolt or some type of rage or some type of desire to get out or whatever. But so if it was just Iris, then yeah, but it's Eva and whoever else. So I think it's an elaborate plan. I think it's a scheme. I think it's definitely something they got going on to get them all out here. Alan S. Webb says, I think she wants to trap Iris in the mirror forever so she can completely take over her life. I'm going to say, agree completely. I think there's more to it than that, but definitely that's a foundational part of it. Okay? So I definitely think they all want out. Okay? And now George Alexander kicked in about the question about Barry's powers. And I'm going to say I definitely want to see Polly and Linda Park in a very intense way. They're one of the best couples in comics. They are one of the best couples in comics, Wally and Linda Park. And this show has robbed us of them. And I think that is a huge mistake. Okay. Okay. All right, moving on to question 8. I have to say, I did not like Sue at all. She's one of the most likable characters in the comics. But this one, nope. What did you think of her? I did not like this version of Sue. This version of Sue was, just a smart aleck, just a smart mouth, just, the same way Chloe got on my nerves in Smallville. Every answer that Chloe gave was some kind of quip, some kind of snark. She could never just talk normally, And that's kind of the way I felt about this version of Sue. Just everything is some type of smart mouth, remark and some type of snarky comment. And I don't know, I just didn't like her. And in the comics, man, Sue's adorable. In the comics, she's adorable. She's adorable because she's one of those people that's really kind of steadfast, really stable, really, really, really loves Ralph above all else and above all others. And truly the definition of a babe before anything else. That is what Sue is to Ralph. She's loved him from the beginning. She's loved him since she met him. And she preferred him to Superman and Green Arrow and Batman and all that. And, Elongated Man was always, most girls prefer the big guys. And Sue was like, no, I'm perfectly happy just to be here with you. And she just adored him. She just adored him from the beginning. So Sue in the comics is just infinitely lovable. Here, I was just like, this woman was just super annoying. Let me see what you guys had to say. Critical Blast says, I'm betting she's a thief for the good guys, like she's actually Agent Dearborn. And I said, I'm going to say, yeah, I think that's accurate. Whatever DC's version of S.H.I.E.L.D. is this week, I think Sue is working for them. Yep, okay. Ashley says, I actually loved her and I thought her and Ralph had some good chemistry. Maybe that's because I don't know comic Sue, but this is kind of how I wanted Sue to be anyway, so I'm good. Okay, I'm going to say, I understand. This is how you envisioned Sue in the first place? Okay. So that's an interesting perspective, but again, I didn't like her. Didn't like her and still don't. Polly said, oh my God, I was the same. I was like, this lady is snotty, mean, rude, and a jerk. This isn't the Sue I know about. I feel like she was just constantly being a rude fill in the word, especially to Ralph, belittling him and pulling off some attitude I never put with Sue. And I'm going to say, once again, verbatim, I said all of that on the live chat. Nothing about this version of Sue was what I had in mind or who she is in the comics. In the comics. She's super sweet and supportive because she really is. That's what makes her so lovable. That's why Ralph loves her so, because Sue has always got his back. In the comic books, Ralph and Sue was a couple. Sue has always got his back, and I mean always. So that's why seeing her like this was kind of what? Polly said, I even said last week how I wasn't impressed with even the little bits we saw from the trailer and how this Sue seemed actually mean. Of course, I gave everything a chance, but yeah. And I'm going to say, she doesn't seem mean. She is mean. Period. Because she's very mean and very much not how I envision Sue. But Ashley said, yeah, this is kind of how I envision her personality to be. So, but then again, you know, when you don't know Sue from the comics, your expectation wouldn't be tempered by that. So this was definitely not what we had in mind if you know Sue from the comics at all. At all. Okay? Now let's move on to the next question. Let's move to question 9. Question 9 says, did you see Sue's double cross coming, and why didn't Cecile sense it? Now, I bet you, I challenge you to say that phrase 3 times fast. Why didn't Cecile sense it? Why didn't Cecile sense it? Why didn't Cecile sense it? Okay. So did you see the double cross coming, and why didn't Cecile sense it? From the beginning, Cecile has had these very convenient telepathy powers. So her powers of telepathy, because sometimes she can read minds, but most of the time she's reading feelings. So I guess she's supposed to be kind of like a Deanna Troy from Next Generation. But I don't really know how emotional telepathy, empathy works. Being a telepath, reading somebody's mind is one thing, but reading somebody's emotional state can be nebulous at best. But Cecile's powers have always been roller coastery. They always just kind of kick in when the plot needs them to, but they haven't been consistent. But so when it comes to Sue, she definitely played Ralph. Did you see that double cross coming though? My answer to that is I didn't like her from the jump, so I personally would have never trusted her. Okay, if it had been me, I would have proceeded with caution. You know, if Ralph was going to part, because Ralph partnered up with her just a little too quickly. For my taste, I know that they needed to work together and everything, but I would have had some type of, you know, cautionary attitude, like I wouldn't have, you know, just jumped in kind of like Ralph did. But Ralph was played, and he figured out he got played, okay? So let me read what you guys have to say. Oh, nobody answered yet. So yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was kind of naive of him to have his little twinkle, twinkle, twink nose that smells a mystery and his detective skills and all the things that he says he's doing and capable of doing all the time. And then Sue just kind of, you know, plays him like a fiddle. She played him like a fiddle, folks. She played him like a fiddle. So, I don't know. So, yeah. And like I said, Cecile should have been able to pick something up off of her. Remember when they met? What Cecile said was she picked up that their thought processes were the same, which again makes me wonder about this empathy, this telepathy. You know, she says that how would she know about their thought processes? Or, you know, but anyway, so she said that their thought processes were, you know, like one and the same, and two peas in a pod, and they were concurrent, and maybe that's what made Ralph trust her too much, to be honest. And, you know, maybe if they were dating and all that, Cecile picked up all that. Somehow she didn't pick up that Sue was playing Ralph, that there was a double cross, and yeah, how did she not pick that up? That doesn't make any sense. Critical Blast says Cecile's powers aren't empathic. They're writer shortcuts. I'm going to say, yeah, exactly. They are plot convenient. Because they really are. Just no consistency whatsoever. Polly says, as soon as I swallowed the mean soup bit, I saw it coming immediately, no questions asked, all chips in. Cecile's powers only work when plot convenient. Since she can't give a heads up and Ralph has to fail, show plot point, it seems she couldn't sense that. And I'm like, okay. She says she senses the unity of their thought patterns. And of their thought patterns and their beginning romance, but not the fact that she was playing. I called Bantha Poodoo. Because that was just ridiculous. Okay, let's move on to our next question. Wait, let me make sure I got everybody's answers here on this last one. I go through the questions because I want to be sure I get them all in. Sometimes people ask questions that I posted, but they answer them after the fact, so don't always get to shout out those answers because they come in after I've moved on. Oh, now George Alexander says something about Sue. Okay, I want to read these. This is the previous question. George Alexander says, she just has to be another female mega that upstages men. She's MacGyver, Catwoman, and Sherlock Holmes. She saved Ralph from a normal guy whose punches should have no effect on him. Soon only has problems for another woman, who, by the way, should have cleaned the floor with her. And to that, I'm going to give him a gif of Boone, because he nailed it. He nailed it. All that is true. Just another female character to upstage men and MacGyver, Catwoman, all that's right. Mikey Flash, my good friend DJ Mikey Flash, Mike Schmidt 09 says, let's make sure that Sue is a rude, inconsiderate thief and makes Ralph look foolish Well, she comes out on top. And I'm going to say, that, yeah, welcome to Identity Politics 2020. Because all that is right. Okay, let me keep it moving. Question 10. The most interesting part of the episode, Nash is having hallucinations. Is he seeing Harry or Eobard? Now, I'm going to type out this, what I'm saying to you on the live stream. This was the biggest clue that Mirror Iris is connected to Eobard, because that hallucination of the other Wells showed up when Iris did. I hope it's Harry, but now I'm almost 100% sure it's Eobard, working with Iris in the mirror dimension. Even though I wish it was Harry, because Harry should have never left. See what you guys have to say. Oh, okay. No answers there yet, but yeah, so Iris is down there fooling around trying to get that gun, and Nash is around, and Nash is talking to her, but while he's talking to Iris, he sees that other Harry that kind of looks like Wells, but it could be Eobard as Wells too. So they're connected now as far as Mirror Iris, and whoever this Wells is connected. And Nash is having his flashbacks and his guilt trips, because remember, I still think that Allegra is his daughter. So, got an answer to that, and Polly says, I'm going with my answer. Last week it's Thawne. It's too cunning, purposeful, conniving to be old Harry. What I'm going to say. Yep. Thoughts. The same exact thing. Oh, excuse me. Okay. Question 11 should be popping up. Yeah, so that's what I thought. So it's definitely going to be some type of connection between Eobard and Mirror Iris and everything that's going on in that dimension. Okay, question 11. Do you like this version of Ralph and Sue as a growing couple? And I'm going to answer that first off myself and say, unfortunately, not this version of Sue. For Ralph, I would never trust her again. Were I Ralph, I would never trust her again, and I wouldn't if I was him. Why would you, see, this happens so often on these shows. This is what happened with Laurel on Arrow. A lot of people wonder what happened with Earthworm Laurel and why they didn't bring her back and all the stuff they did. The answer to that question is they started Laurel too far from where she had to go to become Black Canary. Okay, if Laurel Lance, Earthworm Laurel Lance, the one that we meet in the first season of Arrow, is going to become the Black Canary that we know, they started her too far away from that person. And when you start a character so far away from the person that you want them to end up being, Sometimes they're come to Jesus moments, sometimes they're epiphany, sometimes they're self-revelation. Just isn't enough to convince you of so massive of a change. And the Laurel that we met in Earth One Arrow, she was angry, she was an alcoholic, she drank a lot, she was vengeful, she didn't have any real street fighting techniques, training. She just wasn't Dinah. She just wasn't Black Canary. And they started her too far. She had to come too far to become that character. And so that's what I think they did here with Sue. This version of Sue, they just started her way too far from who she'd have to be. I just don't believe this girl would be lovable or always have Ralph's back or be loyal or be steadfast, or she's a trickster, she's a scammer, she's a schemer, she's a manipulator, she's a whole bunch of stuff. Remember in Avengers when the first scene with Black Widow is tied up and they're beating her around and they're laughing at her? But she tells Coulson when he calls her on the phone that she's actually got the tables turned, because she's actually pumping them for all the information. So that's the way this version of Sue made me feel, except not as lovable as Natasha, because Natasha is a spy and Natasha is a manipulator, but we still love her. She's still on the side of the good guys. She uses all those skills in that service. This Sue strikes me like she's really not out for anybody but herself. And that is not Sue from the comics at all. Not in the slightest. So I'd never trust her. I just would not. Just wouldn't. George Alexander before says, Sue did it to save Ralph from getting in over his head. She's being noble yet also tough at the same time. Yeah. Holly says she loved this post. Okay, good. So on to our last question. Hasn't popped up yet, so yeah. So, I just think they did a terrible job of setting up the Sue that's supposed to be the one we know, or maybe she's going to turn into the one we know. She started too far. Okay, on question 11, when I said, do you like Ralph and Sue together as a growing couple? Polly said, nope, no. When they first said Sue was coming to the show in the teaser last finale, I was so excited to have the sweet girl who would help Ralph see who he was on the inside, but instead we got snobby Sue. So that girl in Iron Heights and Don't Look Back. Iron Heights and Lose the Key. Simple as that. See, you're not supposed to have a lovable character have that effect on the audience. A character that's supposed to be completely lovable, that everybody in the comics loves. Everybody in the comics loves Sue, and they love Ralph and Sue together. And so they write her like this? Just, It's just too far. She's got to go too far from where she needs to be. Okay, final question. And Joe says Black Panther. Black Panther, what? Like somebody written too far to become who they were supposed to be? Is that what you mean? Elaborate a little bit more on that, Van Joe. I'm not quite understanding what you're saying. So in question 12, it says, what do you think Sue's ultimate goal is? Revenge against McCulloch. And to that, I'm going to say, I kind of already answered this. But I think her goal now is to serve whatever spy agency she's working 4. I think maybe it's bigger now than just the color. I'm from Germany. I don't understand all what you say. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't speak German. I don't think we have a translator on Facebook. I'm going over FlashChat. I'm talking about the last episode of The Flash, season 6, episode 12. So that's what this is. I'm sorry about about the language barrier. Okay, let me see what else you guys had to say on that last question. Okay, no answers there yet, but let me see about past questions. JLA Avenger says, I really wish they hadn't killed that country singer in season 4. I like the chemistry between her and Ralph. I'm going to say that's a really good point. She was a better partner, Ralph, than this version. Let's see. They only love to ruin characters now. Which is true, they do. Okay, got an answer here, and we're almost out. Polly says, I'm not sure what her goal is, honestly. Maybe the real Sue is in the mirror dimension, and that sappy I'm on the run story was the good Sue story. I must say, good point. This might not even be her with the introduction of the mirror dimension. There's just no telling now. Which is so true. We've opened up a world of doppelgangers, folks, because they opened up a mirror dimension. So now there's absolutely no telling. Johnny George says, I know Jack about Sue in the comics, but yeah, I kind of liked her. I think they could make use of her in the show if they play their cards right. Maybe. Show's overcrowded. All right, folks, that's it. That's it for this week. Thanks for joining this week's Flash Chat. Remember this, there's a new episode of The Flash tonight. A Flash Chat is the fastest hour live, so we'll watch that episode tonight, and we'll be back same time next week, 1 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time for the next episode of Flash Chat. Thank you so much, and have a great week. Like, subscribe, share, and ring the bell, and enjoy.